Hello from the Channel studio in London and welcome to another edition of Foreign Dispatches. I'm Tenyola Oyetayo. On the programme this week, hospitals caught on the front line of war as fighting continues in Gaza, plus growing frustration among Israeli hostage families. The situation in Gaza continues to worsen as hospitals and medical facilities become entangled in intense fighting. This week, 3 international medical aid groups announced their withdrawal from the Al-Aqsa hospital in central Gaza after Israel issued evacuation orders, with Gaza residents already fleeing a number of times in search of safety. Many now express that there's no safe place left to go. This is another Gaza hospital on the brink of collapse. Al-Aqsa Hospital is the only medical facility still functioning in central Gaza, but under increased threat of Israeli bombardment.
In the emergency department where they're treating children, several children on the floor and on a gurney behind me, doctors calling out for scalpel and chest tubes. Many people coming in from an explosion. There's one child who unfortunately passed away whose body is not identified, and it's, as you can see, a chaotic scene. Unfortunately, this area is close to an area that was evacuated yesterday. An evacuation order was issued, and they've lost a lot of their staff. This hospital is currently operating with about 30% of the staff that it had just a few days ago. They are seeing, in some cases, hundreds of casualties every day in a small emergency department. Yesterday they said they had one doctor working overnight in this emergency department with hundreds, in some cases, of casualties coming in on a daily basis.
International medical groups, along with almost all of its staff and patients, have been forced to flee following evacuation orders.
We have difficulty getting clearance. We have limited time to access these hospitals. They're seeing many trauma cases, many routine presentations, and they're working with very minimal staffing in some cases because staff have been displaced.
The health facility has reported immense needs, especially health workers, medical supplies, and beds. But staff say their greatest need is for the hospital and its staff, patients, and families there to be protected from strikes and hostilities.
There are patients coming in every few minutes, and it's really a chaotic scene. The hospital director just spoke to us, and he said his one request is that this hospital be protected. Even though many of his staff have left, even though this hospital is under enormous pressure, the one request that the hospital director said is that the international community needs to make sure that this hospital and other hospitals like it stay protected, that they not get struck, that they not get evacuated, that they're able to continue functioning. That's the critical message for today.
Amid the order to evacuate, those camped outside Al-Aqsa Hospital say there's no safe place to go and no safe way to get there.
Everywhere is being shelled relentlessly. There is no safe place, whether in hospitals, medical facilities, schools, UN facilities and mosques. Even kindergarten and border areas were bombed. They have shelled everything.
They are telling us it is too dangerous to stay here. So my sisters went to Rafah, but I could not leave the hospital because of my kidney dialysis. My health is deteriorating due to the current situation and poor conditions we are living in.
A number of international medical aid organizations have announced that they are withdrawing from Gaza because the situation on ground has become too dangerous. In November, Gaza's largest hospital al-Shifa was raided by Israeli forces, which claimed that the Hamas militant group tried to conceal its operations within the facility, something that Hamas denied. Located in the north of the Gaza Strip, the medical facility has partially resumed operations a month after Israeli forces withdrew, but it's now grappling with even more challenges.
We are facing several problems and challenges to keep these rooms running. For example, there are continuous failures in the operation systems, oxygen and air systems, and sterilization equipment. We work in the operating room with the least possible capabilities, including equipment, devices, and medical supplies. This is due to the massive destruction and damages in the hospital, facilities, equipment, and services.
Israel launched a ground assault of Gaza following Hamas's violent attack in October, which killed more than 1,200 people and led to the taking of nearly 250 hostages. The Hamas-controlled Gaza Ministry of Health estimates that more than 22,000 Palestinians have been killed in the fighting. Israel says its war on Gaza will continue for at least a year in order to secure the return of Israeli hostages and eliminate Hamas. At the current pace, that could mean the complete destruction of the Strip and thousands more fatalities. Western diplomats are again visiting the region in another attempt to stop the conflict, growing into what the U.S. Secretary of State has called an endless cycle of violence.
We'll be looking at what we can do to maximize the protection for civilians, maximize humanitarian assistance getting into them, and also to get hostages out of Gaza. There is clearly a strong desire among the majority of people in the region for a future that is one of peace, of security, of de-escalation of conflicts, of integration of countries. And that's one path, that's one future. The other future is an endless cycle of violence, a repetition of the horrific events that we've seen, and lives of insecurity and conflict for people in the region, which is what virtually no one wants.
It's Anthony Blinken's fourth visit to the Middle East in 3 months and comes amid rising tensions in the region, with concerns that the war in Gaza could spread. The diplomatic effort comes amid a new round of violence on the disputed frontier between Lebanon and Israel, which is seen by analysts as the most likely flashpoint for a new full-scale conflict. On Saturday, Hezbollah forces in southern Lebanon fired a barrage of rocket attacks on northern Israel in reprisal for what appeared to be an Israeli-planned bomb attack that killed a key Hamas leader in Beirut. Israel responded with airstrikes targeting Hezbollah forces in Lebanon. Meanwhile, over 3 months into their loved ones' kidnap, families of Israelis taken hostage by Hamas are voicing growing despair at the slow progress of efforts to secure their release and at the lack of information coming from the Israeli government. The world's attention is still very much focused on the ongoing war in Gaza, where Hamas-run health authorities say more than 22,000 people have been killed in Israeli strikes, many of them women and children. But Israel doesn't want the world to forget what happened across the south on the 7th of October, when 1,200 people were killed. More than 360 people were killed here at the Nova Music Festival site when armed Hamas fighters crossed over the border just 2 kilometers to the west. There's very little left at the Nova site now, but that doesn't mean what happened here has been erased from memory.
You know, I arrived 15 minutes before the sirens, and I didn't really have time to enjoy the festival itself. And then the siren started, and we all figured it's a missile attack, because you could hear the rockets and you could hear explosions. So in Israel, you're kind of familiar with that. So we decided that we should leave as soon as we can, and we started to leave with our cars. And you know, after waiting a while in the traffic, we were just stuck and surrounded by other cars that were trying to get out at the same time.
Attendees of the music festival stood no chance. The desert scrub in the area offered very little cover in which to hide, and their exit routes were blocked by heavily armed Hamas gunmen. Although he was able to escape, Gal Dalal is still hoping for the return of his brother, who is among those still being held by Hamas.
I called him after I found a better place to hide, but he didn't answer anymore, neither him or his friends. I think that's when he stopped answering my calls. That's when I realized this is not just, you know, I understand how massive this event is. I don't think I really understand it yet, but I could understand that it's much bigger than just rockets. Think about being on the happiest place you can be. Think about going to a spiritual festival where people celebrate peace and love there. People so open to each other, such great vibes and energies, and your baby brother waiting for you there to celebrate with you for the first time in these kind of festivals. And it was just so joyful. This moment was so magical, and in just, you know, moments it turned into a living hell. And you have people running, people you know, freezing, people screaming, people looking for their loved ones, people get shot, and you can't even wrap your head around what's going on next to you. It happened so fast.
According to Israeli authorities, over 100 hostages are still being held in Gaza. They've now been away from their loved ones for over 3 months. Demonstrations urging the release of the hostages have been held across Israel, with protesters also demanding early elections and the resignation of Prime Minister Netanyahu's government over the handling of the war in Gaza.
I came to this demonstration because I support an agreement of a ceasefire, a long-lasting one, and my opinion on the war is negative, and I want to end the war and the occupation of the West Bank as fast as possible. And I really hope that the Israeli government will change its ways and possibly end it all.
Before the war, Israel had been rocked by frequent anti-government protests, and for many demonstrators, the conflict has aggravated feelings of frustration. When Foreign Dispatches returns in just a moment, fencing gains popularity in Kenya while providing opportunities for young people. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on the program. We head over to South Africa now, where sentiment among the country's manufacturers has turned positive for the first time in 8 months. However, despite the improvement, some economists express caution. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Samosa, has more on this.
South Africa's manufacturing sector has seen some improvement. This has been prompted up by more robust business activity and less intense rolling power cuts during the festive season. However, Electricity Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa says no guarantee of a load-shedding-free future.
The system still remains unreliable. We are working on this unit, so I can't stand here and say to the country that now there will not be load shedding going into the future, and that's why when the alert goes out, it says no load shedding until suspended, until further notice, because we have no control on some of these units. They are extremely unreliable.
Meanwhile, economist says despite this peak, the country's economic outlook remains bleak.
I will be surprised to see if we can grow this economy faster than 1%. So I think we sort of stuck in a rut in South Africa where economic growth is likely to remain at most at 1% and probably less than that for quite some time until we make some dramatic changes as far as policy and the efficiency of the state is concerned.
And we'd expect these improved conditions to persist throughout 2024. And so we are still forecasting some improvement in economic growth this year versus last year. However, in the manufacturing sector in particular, we are still cognizant of the remaining constraints, and in particular, the weakness in fixed investment over the last number of years, which will place a ceiling on further expansion in this sector.
Entrepreneur Kuti Bolaji says load shedding is negatively impacting his business.
Not having electricity costs us a lot. The cost of running a generator is too high, especially when you are using diesel. So with light, proper lighting, or what we say, without load shedding, business will run fine. If there's load shedding, maybe in a week, I spent almost about 3,000 rand on the diesel. It's a serious setback because not only that, you need to get oil, you need to really service the generator, and the problem of even getting, when at times when you don't have diesel, it's a problem. So we run at a loss when we are using, and you see, running with generator also affects our machine a lot.
Well, the business community and economists in the country agree that the power cuts are a huge impediment for structural transformation in the country. But of course, we now know that the government says it's working around the clock to resolve the issues of power cuts. But the progress has rather been slow. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa.
The sport of roller hockey is gradually gaining attention in Benin Republic thanks to a former French pro player who is sparking young people's interest. Let's take a look.
In Cotonou's area center, Kakum Kamchung, a 42-year-old hockey instructor, has ignited a fervor for roller hockey amongst the city's youth. Kamchung has introduced roller hockey to Benin's sports landscape, a recent addition that has rapidly gained popularity. In just a year, his initiatives have fostered a vibrant club with nearly 100 enthusiastic players, paving the way for an eagerly anticipated and competitive championship on the horizon.
It has been approximately a year since we started the hockey activity, so it's very recent in Benin, after all. But in a record time, today we have a club with around 100 players and other clubs coming up. Other school teams arriving in 2024. So ultimately, we will have a very competitive championship in maybe 6 to 8 months.
For the young kids engaging in the sport, there's an introductory training for those who perhaps do not know how to skate.
When I first came, they took me to Mr. Kukam's office and they asked me if I knew how to skate. I said no, I wouldn't have even come. But suddenly, the day they gave me the skate, I started skating, falling, and then 2 weeks later, I mastered it.
Acknowledging the demanding nature of his pursuits, Kamchung says his life is a whirlwind of passion and commitment.
My life is incredibly busy and hectic, yet it's also abundantly passionate. I consider myself fortunate to be engaged in a job that I love and to have the opportunity to implement long-held ideas, especially focusing on the development of sports and social activities. It's a passionate but quite tiring job.
Kam Chung's impact transcended Benin's borders. European coaches, captivated by social media glimpses, flocked to witness the burgeoning talent firsthand. Impressed by the displayed skills, several young players earned opportunities for mentorship abroad, potentially opening doors to European leagues.
And finally, a fencing club in Nairobi, Kenya, is also creating opportunities for young people from low-income communities. While the sport may not be popular in some African countries, the team hopes to change the narrative by garnering more support.
It's a busy day in one of Nairobi's eastern estates. A sword-wielding group from the Savora Matani Fencing Club brings the streets of Roma to a standstill. Dressed in white, a group of fencers are competing by taking turns trying to poke or score hits on each other as residents gather to watch. Aged between 15 to 18 years, the group of 2 girls and 6 boys have been learning and practicing fencing since 2021 after they were given space for free. Even though the sport is not popular in Kenya, their aim is to make people aware of it and garner their support. This fencing student, Grace Allen, took up the sport to keep her busy and away from the streets.
This sport is very unique. Many people don't know this sport. Unlike football, many people know it. It has helped me very much because if you look around, there are some my age mate girls that are pregnant. Yeah, so if you join in something that is keeping you busy, it will help you to not get distracted with some drug abuse and so, yeah.
The team's coach, Isaac Mburu, who is also a coach for the Kenyan national fencing side, started the initiative after learning the sport abroad. His aim is to keep youth off the streets and away from crime that almost ended his life.
I never wanted to see any youth in the life that I lived. You understand? That's why you see that we are going so hard in pulling in more youths, just trying to bring them in and into this safe space, whereby we call it, because they get mentored. We really eradicate on that in paying fees, in giving them the opportunity to fence. So that's how the fencing tourney was born. Mostly is to give them the sense of belonging, the sense of you can come, no matter how expensive the sport is, we are not going to charge you anything, but we are going to give you the space for you to come, train, get the opportunities.
For the young fencers, their ambition is clear, as they aim to become champion fencers.
And that's the program today. But remember, our top stories are never far away. You can catch them on channelstv.com. Thank you for watching. I'm Tenyola Oyetayo. Bye for now.